Chapter 4, Boy Meets Girl, The 5-Year Journey. Let me be clear about something. It took me 4 years of weekly therapy to ask a girl out. 5 years, that's not a casual mention. It's the central fact of my college experience. While my engineering classmates were designing circuits and solving equations, I was learning something far more fundamental: how to be human in the presence of another human being. The details of this time period are a blur to me. As much as psychology was helping me overcome the past life that was defined by being invisible and hiding, I was still living a life that was not very memorable for the most part. It's not that I have a bad memory, but there was so little that would create lasting memories for me. By my senior year, when I finally worked up the courage to ask Michelle for lunch, I had become a different person entirely, not just socially, fundamentally. The transformation was so complete that sometimes I couldn't believe the terrified, silent freshman and the confident senior were the same person. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The point of starting with this scene, me asking out the girl with the John Lennon glasses who worked at the campus post office, is to show you what was possible. Because when I first sat in the Counseling and Career Planning Center as a desperate freshman, dating existed as a vague goal, but my self-esteem was so low that actually asking someone out seemed as far outside my capabilities as designing a computer processor. I could see that others were doing it, just like others were designing computer chips, but they knew something I didn't yet know. The weight of never throughout high school, I hadn't dated, not once. It wasn't that I didn't want to. The longing was there, sharp and constant. But wanting something doesn't mean you believe it's possible. For me, the idea of approaching a girl, of risking rejection, of exposing my fundamental awkwardness felt impossible. I carried the unbearable weight of shame over my shyness and my crippling inability to converse, a secret burden I couldn't share with my parents. Their departures from Georgia Tech were curt, mechanical, laden with the same cold detachment I had always known. What I understand now through the lens of trauma therapy is that my dating paralysis wasn't really about rejection. It was about attachment. Having never experienced secure attachment with my primary caregivers, I had no template for intimate connection. The very idea of being chosen, of being someone's first choice, felt not just unlikely, but literally incomprehensible. I was avoiding situations that might trigger anxiety, which meant I wasn't blushing or experiencing racing hearts around girls, because I never got close enough to them for those symptoms to emerge. Avoidance was my primary defense mechanism. If I didn't know for sure that someone was interested, I wasn't going to take the chance. But how could I ever know for sure without taking risks I wasn't equipped to take? The therapeutic journey. Every week for 5 years, I sat across from my counselor and dissected human interaction like we were studying a foreign language, because that's what it was for me, foreign. We talked about free information, those casual conversation starters that neurotypical people seem to access effortlessly. Weather, classwork, current events, things that didn't require deep vulnerability but could open doors to connection. We practiced active listening, reflecting, rephrasing, asking open-ended questions. I took notes. I had homework assignments. Learning to connect became as structured and deliberate as learning calculus. The therapy group was revelation. Here were other Georgia Tech students, brilliant engineers and computer scientists, who felt as lost as I did in social situations. We role-played conversations, practiced assertiveness, and slowly built the courage to speak up in class. I carried a pad of paper everywhere, using the 3-column technique from cognitive behavioral therapy. Column 1, the catastrophic thought. She'll think I'm weird. Column 2, the cognitive distortion, mind reading, fortune telling. Column 3, the reality check. What's the actual evidence for this belief? Page after page, I battled the voices in my head that told me I was fundamentally unlovable. The post office girl. Michelle intrigued me. She was quiet like me, but there was something warm in her demeanor that suggested the quiet came from thoughtfulness rather than fear. She wore those distinctive round glasses that reminded me of John Lennon, and there was something mysterious about her, a depth I wanted to explore. We worked together at the campus post office during my senior year. By then I'd learned to make friends easily with my coworkers. I could joke, share stories, be open about my feelings, as long as I knew romance wasn't on the table. Friendship felt safe. Dating felt like stepping off a cliff. But Michelle was different. I noticed she never seemed to have a boyfriend picking her up after work. I noticed how she struggled with eye contact the same way I did. I recognized something in her, a familiar shyness that felt like looking in a mirror. For weeks, I would stand outside the student center after our shifts, trying to build the courage to ask her to lunch. The 3-column technique worked overtime. Column 1, she'll say no and think I'm pathetic. Column 2, fortune telling, mind reading. Column 3, she's been friendly every time we've talked. The worst that happens is she says no, and then I know. The first date. When I finally asked, "Do you want to go for lunch?" and she said, "Okay," I felt something I'd never experienced before. Not just relief, but a kind of bewildered joy. Someone had said yes. Someone had chosen to spend time with me. Walking across campus together felt surreal. I kept scanning the crowd, looking for friends to witness this moment, not out of pride exactly, but out of disbelief. Was this really happening? Was I really walking with a girl who had agreed to spend time with me? Then came the money situation, me fumbling through my pockets, realizing I hadn't brought enough cash. The shame was overwhelming. Not just because I'd broken some dating rule, but because it confirmed every fear I had about not being enough. When Michelle offered to pay her part, she wasn't angry or disappointed. She was understanding. But I couldn't receive that grace. The critical parent voices in my head, actual recordings of my parents' disapproval, played on repeat. I had one chance, and I'd blown it. I never asked her out again. That might have been worse than forgetting the money. The conversation that never happened, I've played over in my head. The fact that I never did anything other than drown in embarrassment for forgetting to have enough money to buy lunch. What I could have said that might work could go like this. "Michelle, can I explain something?" I would ask. "Sure," she would answer. "I am thinking that I can't ask you out again because of the thoughts going through my mind. Let me explain. It's embarrassing. You see me looking confident as I talk to people at the post office, the way Mike and I laugh. I speak up with the manager and others, but I am shy. I wish I had made sure I could pay for our lunch when I finally invited you. I was feeling so good as we walked across campus, being seen with you. Can I try this again tomorrow? Otherwise, I will wonder if this was even a date, and I will be too embarrassed to ever try." Realistically, it is probably worth noting that with all the changes in our culture, interracial dating is still not as commonplace as one might imagine. And back then, I was told by a white friend that she and her black boyfriend that it wasn't safe to travel outside Metro Atlanta. To me, I saw Michelle as beautiful and attractive. I may have made an unwarranted assumption that others agreed. I probably thought, let me just get a date, and later I can worry about whether people will approve, and if not, what they would do.